I have little intro and excuse for why we're here today, aside from the fact that I wanted to read some queer characters and horror. Also, because I bought the audiobook of It Came From the Closet, so now I need an excuse to read it. So I got an essay collection, a novella, and a novel to read today as some variety, but first, we will be reading It Came From the Closet by Jo Vallessi. Very worth hearing from fellow authors and lovers of horror about their queer experiences and reflections to hopefully help me get a deeper understanding of where our other stories are coming from today. But while we're reading It Came From the Closet, I'll also be reading Everything the Darkness Eats by Eric LaRocca. I read You've Lost a Lot of Blood, I think like most people first. I don't know if it was the first thing he wrote, but it was written before this, I believe, and I was definitely left wanting more. I wouldn't say severely disappointed, but I was a little let down. It felt like you were being told there's more layers, but the more you cut into it, it's like, where are they? But I do really want to give them another try. So Everything the Darkness Eats is described as an insidious darkness threatening a rural village when occult forces are conjured and bigotry is left unrestrained. And our novel is Red X by David Demchek. The opening synopsis is men are disappearing from Toronto's gay village, which, sold. That's all I needed. A local horror story taking place in a part of town that I visit not infrequently. A very easy choice. I tried to pick a novel that wasn't something you may have possibly heard a million other people talk about already, so hopefully we're able to explore some new authors today. But in the meantime, I'm waiting for the other two to come in from the library. So let's start It Came From the Closet, read the intro, maybe the first story or two while I walk my dog, and come back and talk about it. Now that I sufficiently have hat hair and froze my face, let's talk about how I totally planned on wearing the sweater before I realized the first story was about The Exorcist. But before that, we have the opening written by Jo Vallessi talking about sleepaway camp, which is some classic shit, setting the scene for how incredibly harmful movies just oh so casually were to absolutely anything queer, and very explicitly so. So that set the scene, I think, for what the rest of the authors in the book, that's the era they grew up in. So the next was A Demon Girl's Guide to Life by S. Trimble, talking about The Exorcist. This one lumped a whole fucking lot of themes together. Some of them had really good arguments, other arguments not so much. And I went ahead and finished the next one because it was kind of short, called Both Ways by Carmen Maria Machado. It was about Jennifer's body and exploring bisexuality. But that was a fun one. It was a more powerful essay, in my opinion, because it knew what it wanted to say and got in, said it, and got out. She did have a line that said, "Let sex be unknowable," which I thought was fun. And then I got a notification that my books came in. I have a little bit more time left, so I'm gonna make a hot chocolate and start Red X. Next day, I didn't quite read as much as I wanted to yesterday and didn't have really much to talk about. So I finished up chapter 1, dipped into chapter 2, and we're getting somewhere a little bit, so I have some things to say. So the first chapter takes place in 1984, and we follow Ryan Wilkes, and no one really realizes he's missing until 4 days later. It kind of gets lost in the wind of all the other issues going on in the gay community at the time with AIDS and HIV. And then we meet Victor, his manager. Robin is the DJ for the night. And Frank and Hank, the cops. Ryan talks with the DJ, and afterwards she finds this red book that she assumes is his. And so most of the chapter is following Robin and Victor the rest of the night having these strange oddities. We get backstories as well that's kind of shoot in for them before meeting Trevor, which is Ryan's roommate. And while Trevor and Victor are going through Ryan's things to look for clues, they find a sticky note that just has Nicholas scribbled on it. And what I did find weird is at the end of the chapter, the text turns to like a typewriter font, you know, you assume you're gonna hear a new voice, and maybe it's from the ghost killer man or whatever. It's not. It's the author. It is the author pressing pause on the play and stepping in front of the curtain and being like, now everyone, in case you didn't know, HIV and AIDS was really scary at the time for the 80s. Which it was, and I get it. But the book already told us that. I don't know why he has to insert this essay. It's weird. Maybe not weird. It's jarring, and it feels very needless. So we'll see where that goes. The next chapter is 1992, and it follows a new person. So yeah, confidence is a little wavery for me in this book at the moment. I'm not very excited. I'm really hoping it picks up. The horror just feels so generic, honestly. He's made it pretty damn clear that the killer is immediately an allegory either for, you know, homophobia or HIV. So in 1992, we're following Julian Crooks. He goes missing, but his backpack is found buried in the snow by Trevor. He's going to meet with this guy named Nicholas, which is presumably the same Nicholas from Ryan's scribbled notebook, or scribbled sticky note. Trevor finds his backpack. He also runs into this older lady named Elka, and then we jump to Julian's roommates, trying to find out the last time he was seen. And if this sounds disorganized and all over the place, that's just how it is. I'm going in order the way the book is telling you. I haven't been under the impression that it's disorganized, but it is a little discombobulated. I ended up reading a lot yesterday. I filmed it and talked about it, but I realized afterwards I was just in a bad mood. So we're gonna do that again. Last we spoke, I was maybe a fourth of the way through, and I feel like I'm more like 3/4 of the way through now. So let's talk about where we are now. I will say we are starting to get in some spoiler territory. So I'll try to label as much in the chapters as we go through what's been happening in the book. We left off Julian's roommates going through the red book that was found in his room. Being the end of the chapter, we're blasted into another essay by the author, but he starts to kind of blur the lines a bit between memoir and being a part of the book. He starts reflecting more on why queers like horror, and goes through the story of learning how he had hypoclimactic periodic paralysis. So there's at least some more reason to the essay than the first one, but it's still just a little like, what are you doing here? We're into the year 2000 now, and then Mikey goes missing. He goes missing because of a bitch-ass cop named Hank. It's pretty fucking sad, actually. After Hank disposes of the body, he sees Nicholas, and Nicholas says, you took something from me, I take something from you, and makes the cop kill himself. Then we go to Robin and Salem. Salem was one of Trevor's roommates. They go to Robin's apartment, and as they're leaving, her apartment catches on fire, which is apparently a new skill that the book or Nicholas has. And then we enter the life of Tony. And Tony was the other cop that was with Hank the night he murdered Mikey. And this is genuinely, I think, a hard pivot in the book where it finally kind of starts to get interesting. Before this, I still kind of agree it was very stereotypical, not all that special horror, frankly. The thing that kind of sucks, though, is that Tony is like the only straight character so far, and he feels like the most interesting part. So pretty hard spoilers from here on out. Because Hank died from a self-inflicted wound, Tony's under investigation. Because it's extremely possible, and they think that Tony is the one that killed Hank. So Tony wakes up one morning hungover, and his kid is like asking about Hank, and he's like, well, I saw him in the backyard this morning, or whatever. And Tony's like, well, Hank went up to the farm up north. And the mom's all pissed off at how Tony is handling the loss of his partner, and takes the kid off to school. And Tony passes back out. And then when he wakes up again, he's hearing a noise upstairs from his mother-in-law, who is basically half in a vegetative state. But this time instead she's staring out her window. And she's like, the kid's right, you know. Hank was here, so were those other boys. And Tony's like, the fuck, get back in bed. And she's like, nah, they were here. And then starts slamming her head on the window, breaks it, kills herself. He's screaming for help, and the police that are outside, because he's under investigation, he's under watch. And so one of the cops goes upstairs and he's like, no, she's dead. And another one goes into the kitchen and he's like, your wife and kid are in there. Overnight, they've at least been dead. So naturally, he's arrested. And, I mean, spoiler for how far I've gotten into the book, I haven't heard back from Tony yet. What's happening with Tony? Demchik has managed to write this character who's been in this single part of the chapter briefly. And like, they're the most interesting part of the entire book. So we are leaving the year 2000. And so naturally we have another essay from the author. But this one is almost full on breaking the third wall. So Demchik starts talking about Alexander Wood, which is a real man. What matters in the context of the story is that he's a Scottish man, moved to Canada, made a bunch of money, was kicked out because of a scandal about him being gay and all this corrupt police bullshit, and then moved back to Canada after being in Scotland for a while, came back with a boy, and it's not explicitly said he was used for sex until it does say he was explicitly used for sex. We learn he had a lover named Tommy, who was also used for his body. Tommy gets beaten to death by his estranged father. Nicholas brings him back to life for a little bit. They go kill his estranged father, and that's Nicholas's backstory. His partner was murdered, and now they murder other gay people, I guess. In an act of hate, maybe? A self-hate kind of thing? We do know that they live in, or at least Nicholas, lives in this kind of forest realm that's maybe in between life and death. Now in the year 2008, we follow Mr. Aaron Tate, who is addicted to drugs. And then Aaron goes to bed, wakes up with Nicholas, being like, look, the book shows you can't fight it. Don't you want to join me and never be alone again and feel loved? And Aaron's like, yeah, I do. And so he eats him. And Aaron's like, this is fucking awesome. But the issue is, Aaron wasn't clean. He still had the drugs in his system. And we learn that this is killing Nicholas. Back to Salem, she has a nightmare, feeling like she's the only person left in the world. And then Trevor's boyfriend, Sergio, has a similar nightmare where he feels like he's the only person in the world. But, well, nightmare, like it's real, but it feels like a nightmare. But he meets Ryan. Oh my god, everyone's favorite Ryan from the 80s. Ryan's back. And for 2 seconds. Ryan says a nursery rhyme, says every lock has a key, and disappears. And then Sergio wakes up in the hospital, has a seizure, and that's that. So now we're getting into the last chapter. And I have a few concerns, honestly, that there's a lot of loose ends that I don't know are going to be tied up. Like, for instance, why is Robin special? Also, why was there a fire in her apartment? I ignored it the first time, and then Salem was like, oh man, that fire that happened in your apartment. So I was like, oh, okay, the book obviously wants me to remember this. Similarly, with Ryan being like, there's a key to every lock. Nothing's been locked. Nothing in this book has been locked. The forest isn't locked, the book isn't locked. People aren't locked away from each other, even mentally. They're all pretty, like, you know, open with each other. What's locked? At this point, we're gonna find a key and be like, where does this go? And then we get this spooky little number. Ooh, what does it mean? I couldn't tell you. It's a passage from the current book, from the first chapter, when Trevor and Victor were first hooking up, because they almost hooked up in Ryan's bedroom. And he's here, and it bleeds through the next page, and then it bleeds through the next page. You can barely see it, but you'll take my word for it. I have no clue what that means. Except for, last we heard from Nicholas, he was dying. So is this like a representation of that? We're gonna wrap this up. But first, I really did not intend to ignore It Came from the Closet for so long. So I'm gonna read parts 1 and 2 of that. And then we'll finish up this so we can get into Eric LaRocca. So, my questions were answered, just in a kind of shitty way. It wasn't... I'm not disappointed, I'm just not satisfied. What the fuck happened to Tony? Tony never came up again. Tony. Every fucking person, not everyone, some of them died. At the very end, every person just is like, oh, we're all a big happy family, even Elka, the old lady, and who's this new lady? Oh, you're the wife of the other guy who died? Cool, come on in. They're all friends now. But what happened to Tony? Why were they dead? Why were they dead? I don't care if he's in prison. I don't care if he got blamed or he let go or he, killed himself or what. Why were they dead? Tell me. Well, the red X is scars. Maybe it represents, having lost someone to Nicholas/HIV. David, Mr. Demchuk, is full-on a character at this point. And in the audiobook, he switches back and forth with the narrator of reading some parts. When it's Demchuk talking, he's reading. But then other times he splits with the narrator in the middle of the paragraph, or one paragraph is a narrator and one paragraph is Demchuk. And it's not really purposeful. It just feels artsy for artsy's sake. Same with the ruined page. Zero clue what this was to represent. Robin gets pulled into this ever forest thing that Nicholas is in. And she's kind of like, oh wow, you look hurt. And he says, yeah, kind of. Do you want to stay? And she's like, not really. I have a wife, family, and friends. I would be missed, and that would be dangerous for you. So do the other boys, Robin. Who the fuck are you to be so special? They had friends and family. Some of them were literally married. Just because you're married and have a vagina, why are you special, Robin? And he says, okay. Can I have my villain monologue, though? And she's... Go ahead, have the floor. And so he says how he died. His current lover was Eli. At the time of death, they died a horrible death. And Robin says, what a horrible story. You have lost so much in your life. You don't know that, Robin. You don't know that. All you know is how he died. You don't know that he wasn't from Montreal, that he was brought there. And at one point it says a nursery rhyme, we have a secret, just us three, the robin and I and the sycamore tree. And that's cute, because there's a garden that's kind of like the portal between the two realms. And, you know, she's Robin and the tree is the portal, and that's nice. What's the secret? We know that Nicholas is killing, other people know that. Other people have been in this other realm or whatever. Salem went there. What's the secret? Because I finished and I still don't know. It's a personal taste for Demchuk to insert himself and break the fourth wall that way and be like, I'm my own ex machina. So, in review, it's quirky. The characters are well fleshed out. If you pay attention, it's pretty easy to follow along. So it's a fairly good ensemble. It feels like it needed more development. There's stuff that he tried to put in that just was like, why? I feel like the whole cop thing was there just for satisfaction. He does a pretty good job of setting the scene for the different decades. I think if you want something a little quirkier, this is good. Because of the self-inserts, it's different. It's very unique. And, he deserves that recognition. But I feel like it could have been done better. Glad I read it. I don't think I'll be reading anything else from him. Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm just a little disappointed. I can see why people would be into this. So there you go. That was Red X by Mr. David Demchuk. There is a good amount of some triggering content in this, so if that is a concern for you, look that up. I wanted to start LaRocca tomorrow and just kind of have that as my book of the day or 2 days. And I finished this last chapter a lot faster than I expected. So, just in case this is not my cup of tea, we're gonna end It Came from the Closet after this. So we don't end on a sour note, hopefully. I sound really negative, but I'm actually still very excited to read this because I want to form my own opinion, but also every time people complain about Eric LaRocca, I haven't seen them talk much about this one. I don't know if it's because it's his most recent book, so less people read it because they've decided that they don't like him. So we'll see. We'll see if this edgelord has some standing. The pages are very textured and patterned, and that sucks. That's jarring. I might end up doing the audiobook for this one as well, because I already have a hard time focusing. So, I read all of this the other day, and it's upside down. Wow, the disrespect. I read all of this the other day, and unfortunately I didn't vlog any of it because I wasn't home. But thankfully, I didn't vlog any of it because my notes are insane. Let us talk about the story first. So this is about a man named Mr. Crowley, which if you don't know from real life or the Ozzy Osbourne song, he was an occultist. He was a real man, but this is not about the real Mr. Crowley. Because of that, I think he's very obviously supposed to represent the devil. He has this natural ability and charm about him that kind of seduces people into doing what he wants, despite them very actively, constantly being like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. Whoops, I'm doing it. Mr. Crowley wants to put God back in heaven, I believe, is what he claims to want. So, this was not good. This was poor for many reasons. In part, some of the dialogue feels really unnatural. He also has such a hard-on for similes that I counted up to 8 on one page of similes. It's the only way he knows how to describe things. Also, some of them don't make sense. At one point, he writes, her breathing slow to softer than a whisper. Breathing is inherently softer than whispering. The only context that would make sense is if she was panting, and she wasn't. Another was eating away at him like a scarab beetle. Scarab beetles, famous for eating poop and fruits, not meat. So that was kind of annoying. The other thing was, again, there's a gay couple who is only here for atrocities to happen to them and for you to believe that this is a bigoted town. Otherwise, there's no reason to believe this is a bigoted town. And any story relevance they have is saved for the very end, which to me actually ends up cheapening any message this could have had. There are also instances where the writing just doesn't fucking make sense. For instance, at the very beginning of chapter 13, Ghost is talking about how he doesn't realize he's being stalked. He pays no mind to the car idling outside the supermarket while he shopped for groceries. The ghost limped onto the sidewalk, nearly dropping his cane. The car slowed to a crawl and pulled alongside him, revealing a peculiar old man. 1,000 apologies, the old man said, lowering his passenger window. I didn't see you until it's too late. It's okay, Ghost said, waving the gentleman on and brushing off the dirt smeared on his knees. No harm done. Apparently, Ghost was hit. Apparently, this old man hit Ghost with his car. Or something. It's never actually clarified if he was just hit, or almost hit, or just spooked. I don't know. Also, last we heard he was at the supermarket, and apparently, when he drives away, they're actually pulling away from the hospital. Also, Ghost is such a hated character that he compelled me to create categories on my Notion tracker of books with characters I hate and books with characters I love, because I hate him so much. So let's talk about some spoiler reasons for why I hate Ghost. For one, in chapter 1, He meets this girl's mom and is immediately like, oh my god, does she like me? My wife just died. I can't think about someone that way. And it's like, bro, it feels like she's just trying to be friends. In chapter 2, Ghost is interacting with this agender nurse and is like, oh my god, they're so mysterious. I kind of want to fuck them. And then he gets chills when they touch him. And it's like, stop it. This poor fucking person is just trying to work. It is so weird. It is so weird. Also later in the book, when Ghost and Crowley are kind of working together to send God away, Piper's mom is in a trance in Mr. Crowley's basement. Ghost has to go to the supermarket and sees Piper with her uncle. And so when the uncle's not looking, he goes over to Piper and is like, hey little girl, do you remember me? Come with me. I know where your mom is. Don't tell anyone. So he kidnaps this blind child, takes her to this stranger's house, and is like, look Piper, your mom's right here, say hi mommy. And she's like, oh my god, why isn't my mom talking? This is scary, where am I? And he's like, fuck, that didn't work. Alright, let's bring you back to the grocery store, don't tell anyone. So they go back to the grocery store and police are surrounding it because this fucking child got kidnapped. And he just kind of goes like, alright, have fun, and leaves. And it's like the amount of trauma he's about to put this girl through. Why was this scene here? Why was it here outside of making me hate Ghost even more? Unfortunately, being the main character, he's the one who saves us all at the end. And so Mr. Crowley's dead. Ghost is talking to the Holy Spirit, kind of. It's God. And so the Spirit's kind of like, you saved me. Thank you for this. I will grant you one wish. And the entire book, he's been lamenting about his dead wife. And so for a split second, he's like, oh, I mean, like, my wife. Oh, wait, there's this gay dead guy here. Save the gay dead guy. And that's it. And then we're done. That's the only relevance the gay couple has in the entire book, is to be saved at the end. And, like, the whole point was that Ghost was questioning his faith and being like, you took my family. And so to me, if you had just cut the gay couple completely, you could have had Ghost reflect on the fact that, you know what, what's done is done, live and let die, I have to accept reality. I don't want anything. But instead, he's like, oh, this guy's almost dead. Bring him back to life. That's it. That's it. That's genuinely it. In the epilogue even, he goes up to the gay couple and is like, hey, you don't know me. I saved your life. Don't ask. I don't want to talk about it. Goodbye forever. And then he's having Christmas with Piper and Gemma and is looking at this kid being like, wow, I don't feel alone anymore because I have a family to project all my trauma onto, and you little girl, you're my kid now. And it's like, dude, I hate you so much. And it really sucks because Mr. Crowley was genuinely written in a way that it's like, okay, I feel like it was kind of comparing the blind following of religion, of God as a whole, as a collective, following that and putting your faith in that and kind of being seduced into the healing properties that God has, and instead putting that on this somewhat assumedly demonic figure, at least from the reader, and comparing the two and being like, you know, okay, the religious people who sometimes are bigoted, or the demon guy who accepts me. But nothing said with that. Like, his writing, this is gonna say more about me than it does about him, but this belongs on Tumblr. That's the level of writing he's got. That it's so like, I'm gonna be deep and I'm gonna say something. And it's like, please say something. I'm begging you. Because you're not. But like, and it's really, really close. I think my main issue with this is that I do feel like he was trying to say something. And I feel like I got it. But I feel like the book is vaguely making a comparison, and then just a bunch of random shit is happening around that comparison, so nothing's actually being said. It's just kind of like, you know, he had a thought, and he as in LaRocca, has these other characters, and it's just kind of there you go. A debut novel, which again, cut the cake, gay couple who I don't really like as an inclusion, and it's a novella. So, if you're not surprised to hear 1 star. And that sucks, because I really hate giving 1 stars, because to me that means like I should have DNF'd it. But, after chapter 4, when I was tired of hearing from Ghost's perspective, I almost did DNF it, and the only reason I didn't was because I wasn't home, and I didn't have anything else to read at the moment. So I was like, well, goddamn, I guess I'm gonna keep reading it. Like, I want to give 1.5, but that half star kind of feels like a pity point. Of like, you know, but it wasn't better than last time. Let's see. Where's my notion tracker? You lost a lot of blood. What did I give you? 3 stars. I gave it 3 stars. And I read it for Halloween, apparently. So no, this isn't better. The writing's worse. It's less interesting. If you don't like LaRocca, this isn't the one to convince you. In fact, it's convinced me that I don't need to read him ever again. But on a positive note, I finished It Came From the Closet, and I really liked it. So let's do a awkward half-assed transition into talking about It Came From the Closet. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I have 3 complaints. One is, it's a book about queer inclusion, LGBTQ and various identities. It would be much appreciated if the pronouns of the authors were next to their name. I want to address these people correctly, and instead I have to search it up. And sometimes that's a little difficult. Minor complaint, but also, again, with the themes, you would think that would have been a natural conclusion. My other issue is most of the stories in here are either from American or Canadian authors. And that really stood out when I read That Hombre by Sarah Fonseca. Her essay was about Eres tu Papá, about a Cuban film set in Cuba, about Cuban culture, and mentioned how American audiences couldn't get the film because it wasn't for them. And then looking up where the authors are from for my book tracker, most of these authors were American and like some Canadians. I kind of would have loved more variety on that, but I think to Joe Velisi's credit, I imagine essays don't exactly get translated as often as short stories or books. So it's kind of whatever Anglophone countries these people are from, that's what's going to be selected. My final issue, and I would believe that I'm misremembering, but I feel like a lot of the bisexual representation in the book was kind of negative. It was either friends hiding from their queerness and, you know, being in like a gay relationship with the author, and then rejecting that and deciding to be into a straight relationship with someone else. Or constantly putting this male gaze on bisexuality because, you know, it's like, oh, it's fun to experiment with because, like, men get off on it. And so it's like, sure, I'll play to the male gaze even though I actually really like her. It was, I just didn't like it. Both ways, like I talked about in the beginning, was the most positive bisexual story in the book, and it was fairly short. It does make me want to read more of Macchiato's stories, which she wrote Her Body and Other Parties. So those are my issues. Let's talk about some notable essays, which I will also say some of them are available online. If you don't want to read the whole book or borrow it from the library, what have you, try looking them online. Because I found 3 Men in a Boat by Jem Corrigan online. So she opens up talking about how there are secretly queer films that are straight-coded. So they have the widest audience appeal. And so she wanted to flip that and instead talk about how straight films are secretly queer-coded and talk about Jaws and how it is made by and made for, and in a grand scheme of things, straight men and made for a straight audience, but she wanted to see it through a queer lens. It was a really fun essay. It was more tongue-in-cheek. It was significantly more lighthearted. There were great arguments. It was very well done. She talked about how like they would touch each other's hands to measure each other up, and how it was shot very close. So all the men were forced to be really like in close proximity for the camera, and how it's not that there were no women, so it's like, oh, there's no choice but to be seen as gay because there's no women. But what that's actually saying is that there's nothing to reinforce straightness. There's nothing to remind you that they're straight. And so it allows the queerness to grow instead, because nothing is keeping it down. It was a really fun essay. Like I said, this one is easily found online, so please read it if you want something more fun. Twin Skin by Addie Tsai, I hated. The context that they wrote it in, that they gave the audience, genuinely, if I read this as a short story and not an essay, I would argue that the author is an unreliable narrator. They talk about watching Dead Ringers, which is about twins and one of them stealing the life of the other. And so after they started writing and publishing, their twin started basically doing the same, of trying to kind of steal their identity. And it's just such an outlandish position to have to find yourself in that was a little hard to take serious. Joe Velisi, the editor, wrote an incredibly sad and touching and triggering story called Imprint, talking about Grace, which is about a demon baby. And he talked about how the woman who was gonna give birth to the child that him and his husband were going to adopt, all of the miscarriages that she had, and all the heartbreak and trouble that they went through. That was beautiful. Indescribable by Caro Narby talked about blob monsters and society and the shunting, and how blob monsters, they argued, are queer because they are genderless and they destroy the wall between self and other, because blob monsters absorb you into being one and the same, and the horror of being so intimate with everyone around you. It was well organized, a little rambly, in my opinion. Went on for a little long, but still a very nice essay, and had fantastic argument. Now, Good Guy Dolls by Will Stockton. This one pissed me off. I don't even know. It made me like, why would you put this in an essay? Why would you willingly admit this shit and then put your name on it? It was basically him talking about their foster kid and compared all these like demonic possession stories to their foster kid, which is just so fucked up because it wasn't saying anything about like helping their kid. It just talked about like these manic episodes their foster kid would have and comparing that to being possessed by Pazuzu. He also talked about in one point how this other foster parent, which is just shit advice, talked about how this other foster parent was like, you should film your kid's manic episode so then they can watch it back later and you can ask them like, what were you thinking at this moment? Because you're in a manic episode, you're not fucking thinking about anything. Like it's just so, this is bottom of the barrel. It's offensive. It was way too personal, and it's not about the author. It's about his fucking foster kid. It's fine. You know what? Yeah, we're cool. We'll move on. Listen, overall, I really enjoyed this collection. Essay collections and short story collections, I sometimes struggle to give more than like 3.5 stars. This was an easy 4. There were very few essays that I either hated or just got nothing out of it. Like, I just didn't understand what the author was trying to say. There were some more poorly constructed essays, and I was like, the argument kind of sucks. But for the most part, I could see someone reading this and feeling a lot of connection to it. Whatever you're looking for, it's here. With the caveat that it is a lot of American and Anglophone perspectives. So there we have it. No 5 stars, but a still decent variety of ratings. I did try to read Lucky Day, because I just so happened to have it come in Libby, but it wasn't for me. And I did borrow a novella, but I'm going to save that for the next reading vlog. In the meantime, I'm Rose. I like to do body doubling read with me's and reading vlogs every 3 weeks. Yeah. If you liked the video, please like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!